Hmm. Now,
Okay.
earlier, Ralph, you were talking about talking to yourself. And as you know from one of my presentations, you talk to yourself via Broca's area. You understand yourself through Wernicke's area, and they interconnect through the arcuate fasciculus. So that's how you talk to yourself.
Right here.
Yeah, that's
Here's
Wernicke's area in there, right in there.
Broca's, and back here's Wernicke's.
Yeah.
See, I pay attention,
Well, good.
and I don't, it's funny, I don't talk to myself much. I talk to the cats occasionally, but I don't talk to myself much except when I'm doing stuff. I get this like, okay, I got to do this, do this. I do it when there are other people here. I can't seem to stop myself when in a meeting. And now we're streaming this on YouTube instead of doing the intro and doing the meeting. So let's go. Okay. Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and every Tuesday we have these Stroke Buddies Recovery and Science Zoom meetings. And today, back for the fifth time, we've got Dr. Samantha Amadeo. She's always a favorite of mine, not that Dr. Hetzler, who's here, is not. But I don't know, Dr. Sam and I kind of see the whole recovery and PT process in a very similar way. Plus, I just plain old like her. What can I say?
Thanks, Rob.
Today we're going to have a little talk about kind of a subject that's real important to physical therapy because if you can't master a few things and get to some level of acceptance, you're not going to do your physical therapy. So, attitude and acceptance are the kind of, to me, the foundation of physical therapy because I see people who don't have a good foundation, not doing what they need to do. So, Dr. Amadeo usually prepares a little presentation, but today we're just going to have a discussion. And so I don't exactly know what we're going to do or what she's. On the other hand, this is a subject that she deals with her clients on a regular basis. So I thought a good opening question would be to ask her what are some of the issues that you see around this whole subject with your clients? And I guess you could first give us a few, and then maybe we'll talk about how you address them with your clients, and I'll chime in without interrupting whenever I've got something from my personal experience that I think I could add. And anybody else out there, you're welcome to chime in at any point. If you got barking dogs or kids or husbands that walk through and talk to you and such, would appreciate it if you kept yourself muted except when you're asking a question. And if you don't, you can leave your mic open. So, Dr. Sam, what kind of roadblocks do you find your patients run into that you have to deal with in order to be the most effective physical therapist that you can be for them?
So, just hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back, Ralph, by the way. Very excited to be here. And I think based off of our original kind of like what you mentioned, that usually have a little presentation, but I think this topic today really warrants a conversation. And I'd love to be able to have people, chime in about what their difficulties are too, because that gives us the opportunity, you as someone who is a stroke survivor support group admin and someone that runs this podcast, and others who work with other stroke survivors to help them on their journey, so that we can learn how to help others better. But um, as a physical therapist and also as a rehab coach, where, I think the typical model of physical therapy and where a lot of people, where the system almost sets us up for failure is, you usually go to therapy if you're on an outpatient basis 2 times a week. And a lot of people take that as that's all I do. I go to therapy and I come home, right? And, you're missing out on so much opportunity of recovery. And unfortunately, just the way that the healthcare model is that therapists are really strapped for time. So you're lucky if you get them individualized in general, but you're lucky if you have time for them to discuss the plan that you should be doing outside of therapy. And that's really where the biggest changes are made because we have the most time. With my program, it's really a way for people to transition from the receiving end or, being given care to being the star or, the boss of taking really their life in their hands, their recovery in their hands, and doing something about it independently, regaining that control. So, with my program, there's a huge mindset change, lifestyle habit change that has to happen for you to be successful. So, for instance, you have to be able to really take the tools that I'm providing or that we discuss and develop together, and you have to do them yourself, right? So, you have to incorporate them. You have to have that mindset change. You have to really fit it into your lifestyle. And, that's something that I assist my clients with. But it's not an easy thing to go from, I mean, even if you were very active beforehand, but if you weren't, to now having what I would like not to call it, but a disability, a setback, right? Something physical that's different about you, that is going to impede your ability to do physical work or your energy or your mood, and really get into a good habit, a good schedule, and move your body. And what I find is I can give all the tools in the world. I can discuss and have as many conversations as possible. But if my clients aren't active and they aren't pushing themselves and they aren't active participants in their own life and recovery, we're not going to see the changes that we want. Unfortunately, stroke recovery, there is no quick fix. And it's a lifelong process. And the way that, as I was saying before, healthcare model, where you get therapy for 6 months and they say, see you later. It doesn't end there. You're lucky if you can go back for another 6 months, or, even if you get 2 times a week, you're lucky. So, or you're lucky if your therapist is, knows a good amount about stroke recovery. So I really wanted to bring this here today because not only as a rehab coach do I struggle with getting my clients to that, a huge part of it isn't just learning how to recover, but really that lifestyle change. But I've spoken to other people who have worked with stroke survivors as stroke survivors, and trying to motivate. I'm sure you see it all the time, Ralph, where people ask you how did you get to where you are? And there is no simple answer. It's hard work. And sometimes,
That's the simple answer. Hard work. I busted my ass.
yeah. And unfortunately, that is some tough love. That's kind of why we titled this conversation today is tough love, is that you may be the biggest barrier to your recovery, unfortunately. And we have to figure out ways to really get over. How can we fix your schedule? How can we get it in? How can we, take advantage of the little bit of time that you have, and breaking down and really figuring out, okay, I do have 10 minutes here to do a quick walk, or I'm waiting at the microwave for my food to go. Let me hold a wall sit, or let me do some heel raises, fitting it in wherever you possibly can, because more is more to an extent, but trying to get it in for that repetition, the intensity, and just the more that you do it, the better you're going to get. So I wanted to really open up the floor to our fellow stroke survivors to see what they feel like is really standing in their way from their recovery.
I got something I'm going to just interject while everybody's thinking about what they want to say and hopefully will say. And that is, I realized early on that two sessions a week wasn't going to do it, and I needed to become my own physical therapist. And right from the beginning, I basically asked the physical therapist for homework, and I kind of carved out intentionally the last 5 minutes. Here's the way I look at physical therapy. Anybody who's been around me much has heard this before, but it's still true. Therapist is like your piano teacher. You have to go home and practice. If all you ever did was show up for your piano lesson, you wouldn't make much progress. And guess what? Your piano teacher would know it. They'd know you're not practicing. And PT knows whether you're doing your homework or not. So, and it's human nature to treat you better or differently. If the people that want to get better get treated better, it's just a human nature. So I intentionally carved out the last 5 minutes. I'd rather go a half an hour learning and get my assignment for the week in the last 15 minutes, or I got it down to about 5. I just asked for homework. I demonstrate the homework to make sure I had it, get an okay on it, and I was good to go. I found when they give you those little sheets, like 4 days later, you're going, how the hell do you do this? So,
Absolutely.
I always do it, I always demonstrated it in front of the therapist and said, like this. And the other thing that does is it shows them how bad you are at it the first time you ever do it. And when you come back in a week and you do it better, then they know you did your homework.
Absolutely.
So that's my 2 cents. Also, I don't do it every time, but like when I pump gas, I stand on my affected leg and balance. I touch the car, or don't try not to touch the car. When I thought of this when you said, every time my dinner's in the microwave, I do something. I do stretches or balance or something. Otherwise, you're just standing there. So you can pack a lot more physical therapy into your day if you try to. One more thing, because it just popped in my head, and then I'll shut up. And that's one of the best ways, if you're early in recovery, one of the best ways to get in more physical therapy is to look at your daily rhythms. If you're a morning person and you wake up with a lot of energy and that's a good time for you to do your therapy, then you do it. If you're not a morning person and you wait till you have 2 cups of coffee and wake up and do it at 10 o'clock or whatever. Also, if you're prone to taking a nap, you don't want to be doing your physical therapy right after lunch when you normally take your nap. So you can try and find the times during your day where you have the most energy and the least neuro fatigue, and try and plan your day and your recovery and your exercise and therapy around those times. So Ralph will be quiet now and listen to anybody and everybody else.
Would anyone like to share any concerns or anything that they feel like has been a roadblock for them in, creating that good schedule or getting on board with recovery?
Don't all talk at once. Well, Wendy's going to say something.
I have one. How do you stretch your leg further than what you're supposed to? Because I can stretch my legs to the sides, but not farther enough that I want to.
So you're saying you're putting your legs outward, almost like as if you're opening your legs as far as possible?
Yes, like a triangle. After I stand and just try to make it like a triangle, but it's not far enough, and I want to do it a little farther.
You're talking
So if
about
you want to do it a little, yeah, I think she's talking about like spread, like
Yes,
standing
yes,
like this.
hip abduction,
yes,
taking one leg and standing on one leg, holding the counter and moving your affected leg out.
yes.
Okay.
So what you could do is I love to give the exercise of weight shifts to my clients where it's almost like a side lunge. So you're not going to be stretching both legs at once, but you'll be stretching either or, and you just shift to one side and then shift to the other by bending. So say you want to stretch your left leg, you bend down towards the right, bending like a lunge, and you should feel the inner thigh of the left stretching more.
Okay. I got on gym shorts, but I could try it and see if everybody wants. I'll try it and see if I can demo it. Dr. Sam, I came up with one of the things I do when microwaves going around is I always fool with the countertops, and I go to the corner, and I've worked out a thing where you can put your hands on each side of the corner and you get into a lunge position. You can do weight shifting, you can do lunges. It's really cool. I just have to figure out how to film it, because from the back, you get the back of my head and you can't see much, and from the front,
Yeah.
need to attach the camera to the cabinets and have it look down.
Yeah.
But
It might actually be helpful for you to try it on like a rail, just to show the demonstration so that you can shoot it from the front. Do you have a rail outside?
I got fence outside. So you're talking about,
Basically, you're going to spread your legs, Ralph, in a triangle position,
triangle. Yeah, okay.
even farther, as far as you can get them.
I just started with simple, like just lifting them, and then I got more into rocking them. And I think Winnie's talking about what I would call hip abduction, where you just take that leg out.
Yes.
So I get in a triangle position.
Yep. Get the legs as far as possible out to the side.
Please
And
note,
then you're
always have a chair or something for safety. I don't really need it, but I just moved it back just in case. So I'm wide. Now what do I do? Lunge?
And then you're going to bend down, to one side, and try to keep the other leg as straight as possible. But you'll hold it there, Ralph. So you're going to lunge down, hold it there.
And I turn my foot out, or my feet still straight?
Your feet should be straight.
Okay. It's kind of hard. Well, I mean, you can lunge. You want to keep
Yep.
this straight. Well, that's difficult.
Yep. And then you're going to shift to the other side. So bend. Yeah. So you're going to do that and bend your knee.
Most guys
So bring
can't wait. You can't. A lot of guys have trouble moving their hips like I'm doing here. So like that?
Yes.
Okay, I got it now.
Because whenever you're using the floor or the ground, you can get a more in-depth stretch because your feet are planted. So you can really, really use the floor to ground your feet, and then you use the hips to shift either to one side or to the other side. And I can send you guys pictures and videos too after this, if anyone has any questions. So go ahead, Ralph.
One more thing, and I just want to point out, what I just demonstrated is exactly why I always insisted on doing it in front of my physical therapist, because if I listen to Dr. Sam and come home 2 days later, I don't have her, I'm going, what did she say? So that's what I just did, was I worked through it until I got it. She saw I got it. She said, that's it. And it's locked in. If I was at therapy, I could go home. And the other thing I did was when I got home, I'd do 15 or 20 of anything just to try and like lock it's not muscle memory, lock the brain memory in. We need to start a campaign to get rid of the term muscle memory. Muscles don't remember anything.
But yeah, so exactly, I think like what comes from all this conversation is the idea of being enough of an active participant in your care that you actually ask questions. So some of my clients, when they start, I say, how did the week's exercises go? And they say, good. And I'm like, okay, what was good about them?
Yeah.
Did you do your walking? Yep. And that's
Sounds
it.
like you're talking to your kids. How was school today?
Yeah.
Good.
So it's just a one-sided, and trust me, I love stroke recovery, but I'm not doing this for me, right? I'm doing this for you to get better. So, in my programs, I include, which is something that you all can do on your own, is a tracking sheet of your work, where not only is it going to hold you accountable and for you to be able to check off what you're doing, but it allows you to see your progress to the next week. So I've got some really wonderful clients who have learned really good habits, and they come to me and they've got a list of things. Sam, I want to go over this exercise because it was confusing to me. Sam, I was able to do 8 reps of this exercise on the left leg, but I was able to do only 2 on the right side. So we see that discrepancy in progress, right? The differences between right and left. We go over the exercise, and then they're able to improve it and work on it the next week. So those little notes, I mean, having a coach is, or having a partner, like a accountability partner is wonderful, because that's where you can kind of use your brains together to figure things out. But something like a tracker, and even just being very in tune to how your exercises and how your work went that week, can give you that sense of, one, I did a damn good job this week because I actually did all my exercises. Or two, why did I not do my exercises this week? Like, what got in the way? And three, how can I improve this for next week? In all of those scenarios. So when you are an active participant and you can ask those questions, those really good questions of, like what Ralph said, how do I do this the right way? Where should I do it in my house? How do I progress this exercise if I feel like it's too easy, which is something Wendy might want to ask her therapist or a friend, to say, I'm doing this. I can't get a stretch. I can't get a far enough stretch because I've gotten too good at it. How can I make it harder for myself? So all of those very cognitive, like where you're really, really thinking about your recovery, shows that you are active and you're thinking and you're learning about how you can get better, versus I'm going to do the same exercises or not even do my exercises because I feel like they're doing nothing. And I don't even remember if I did them this week, or I don't even remember if I did my walking this week. And I don't know what got in the way of it because there's no reflection there. So this journey and these habits have to be installed into your life and into your recovery, almost as important as it is to use the bathroom every day or to eat every day or to get dressed. It's added into your habits. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard to make these changes, and it's hard to get into the rhythm of sitting at the end of the day and reflecting, okay, what did I do today? Maybe I didn't get my exercises in because it was a long day. I went out, I had a party to go to, but did I accomplish anything while I was out? Did I feel more confident when I was walking on the street? Was I able to walk without holding someone's hand? Was able to feel less fatigued in this moment? Where those little pieces of progress and positivity just drive that neuroplasticity and your ability to feel confident and happy and motivated to keep going. Because if you don't have that, you're going to feel like you're stuck in a rut. I'm seeing no progress. I'm not going anywhere. It's the same thing every day. But being able to walk to the next mailbox is so much better. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I deal more with mental issues. I live alone, so I'll deal with loneliness and depression. So, what's a good way to deal with those issues?
So I would take this from two different perspectives. So loneliness in general is, please let me know if I don't want to speak for you, but from like my experience as a therapist and like working with people, is when you have a stroke, you almost isolate yourself because you don't feel like you're the same person as you were. You don't have the same personality, you don't have the same abilities. And it can be a very isolating experience. So challenging yourself to find things where there is a community. So, for instance, Jerry, right now, you involving yourself in something like this can help with that feeling of loneliness, where it's not even having people physically there with you, but virtually there with you, and building relationships with people where you can kind of mirror and you can really like understand what they're going through and what you're going through to support one another as you're going through your recovery. Or I always say, like, try to get yourself out there in the safest way possible. So even if that means being at the park and sitting on a bench and just being there and taking in what's going on around you, trying to push yourself to get out into the community or find something that's community based. So some of my clients they'd like to do swimming, and they're a part of the YMCA. So they go and do swimming at the Y. And then, you know, as you put yourself out there, you end up meeting other people who are doing similar things to you. So that can always help with the loneliness, and kind of not just finding someone who's going through similar things, but people who have similar likes and dislikes as you from a community standpoint.
That's
Now,
good.
from
That's
a,
good for helping with loneliness. But what about the depression?
so the depression, I mean, just in general, exercise helps with depression, where it releases endorphins in your brain. So any type of extra mobility that you're doing, movement, walking, all of that is going to help with depression. Additionally, exposing yourself to sunlight, getting out into the community, all those things as well, and dealing with the source of the depression is really what's going to help you most. So a lot of the reasons that my clients have those feelings of depression is because they don't feel like themselves again, or they're not doing the things that they used to do anymore, or they don't feel like maybe they are participating in their household as much as they used to be able to. So they've lost that role of wife, friend, parent, employee. So finding ways that we can solve that problem, and then also putting yourself out there to find help through different avenues of therapy. So talk therapy, um, or a psychiatry if you need medications to help with brain chemical imbalances that can happen after stroke. Um, but really looking at all the different opportunities that you have to help with that depression. And if it's hard for you to kind of nail down why it's happening, then finding someone that can help you nail down why it's happening. Because it could be from a bunch of different sources, you know, but once you're able to kind of figure out the problem, then we can tackle the problem.
Thank you.
Terry,
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a couple things to add. Loneliness and depression live on the same street, so to speak.
Yes.
I had my stroke 17 years ago, but my ex-wife left not quite 5 years ago, and I found myself living alone for the first time in 50 years. And so I did a couple of things. One is I started a just say yes policy. In other words, anybody invites me to do anything, I just say yes. Unless I really don't like them or really don't want to do whatever it is there. I mean, can't think of a thing where I've said no. The other thing is, it's a personal decision. I'm not real religious, but I found a church I like and started going to church for the first time in 56 years. The lessons are good. An hour of positivity is good, but a lot of the reason I went was we have yoga classes, fire circles, drum circles, potluck once a month, the book groups, yoga classes, all kinds of stuff you can get involved in. And I made a lot of good friends there. And don't underestimate the power of community in terms of helping with depression. Because part of depression is you don't have anything. You don't have anything to look forward to. You don't feel like you have anything in your life. And, knowing that you're going to see your friends or go do something, it gives you something to look forward to. If we don't get to some level of acceptance, and we don't dream. And when we don't dream, we don't plan. And we don't plan, we don't execute. So, that's how I've been handling it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something that I do mention too with a lot of people, Ralph and Jerry, is that your life can feel like it's becoming just about your stroke. Unfortunately, everything is therapy, everything is rehab. I have to do this, I have to do that, and nothing's fun, right? It's just like, and you know what? If I'm not seeing even a bit of progress, then it's just going to make me even more depressed because I'm putting all my time to this and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. And that could be very discouraging, right? And making you feel like, why even do this, right? Like, why should I even put my efforts in this way? However, the point of all this is for you to be able to do the things that you love again. So identifying what it is that you love. So I did make a post recently about one of my clients wanted to go to the beach. And she said no, none of her therapists ever before said that she could do something like that. They all were like, not going into something and saying, no, I can't do it, but with the idea of I may have to do something modified. I may have to have a plan in place, kind of like with what Ralph is saying. You're feeling a little weird about going and doing yoga. Will I actually be able to do all the moves? Will I actually be able to carry something to a potluck? Things like that. But if you really do think and you plan ahead and you almost have an escape plan for if something were to go wrong, that is a way of calming any anxieties and making you feel a little bit more confident to put yourself out there. So always knowing, there will be a chair for me if I need to sit. I can always just watch. I could always do something in a sitting position. I could always, you know, carry something in a bag instead of carrying something like in a tray. All of these different ways that you can still try to experience the things that really brings us happiness in life. Like the reason we're doing this recovery is so that we can experience life, right? So if we really take the things that are important to us that we want to participate in and we try to break them down so it's not scary for us, but it could be scary, but just, we have a plan if things go awry, that can help you with putting yourself out there to combat things like depression and loneliness.
Okay, I got a couple more things to add.
Right? Oh,
I'll let you go in a minute, Bruce.
okay.
The other things I tell survivors is you got to find stuff you're passionate about. So if you had any hobbies, if you can get back to doing the hobbies you did before your stroke or adapt them in some way, that's always good. If you can't, find some new hobbies that you're capable of. The other thing would be, I spaced it, okay. Oh yeah, volunteering. You meet good people when you volunteer. So if you're like, I had somebody who was doing dog rescue and they were talking themselves out of the whole thing. Oh, the dogs have pulled me over. And I go, they need somebody to answer the phone. They need somebody to stuff envelopes. They need somebody to do fundraising. They need somebody to change food bowls. You don't have to be on the end of a leash. You can be around the people and the dogs that you like and just, think about it differently. And she went, oh, okay. I don't know if she ever went, but I tried to, all I can do is ever plant a seed. The other thing is if you're, one of the things about being alone and being lonely, Jerry, is I find that I would sit here and I would come up with reasons why I wasn't going to go listen to music or why I wasn't going to do this or that. And I don't know about you, but I talked myself out of a whole bunch of stuff. So that's the whole, oh yeah, okay, so this is resonating. So that's why the just say yes policy. But I also posted about this. See, I turned Dr. Schwartzberger and I had a thing, and she's an academic. I'm not picking on her. I love her, but academics always come up with these titles that are like, the title of a scientific paper, and I couldn't fit it on my graphics, so I just said, called it putting yourself out there. And I started a whole series, and since I've been saying yes and doing things, I've gone out on a boat, I've gone bowling, I've gone dancing, I've gone to drum circles. I found out drum circles are really good coordination therapy. It's not so easy to beat a drum with your affected hand in time because it's not fast enough. Anyhow, and I posted about them. There's pictures of me bowling and dancing and drumming and whatever, because in the Stroke Buddies groups, then I call it, guess what? Putting yourself out there. So put yourself out there, be my advice.
Thanks.
And you'll start to see it melt away from all sides. It's like a stick of butter. It's not just going to melt on one side. You heat it up enough, the whole thing will go down.
Mm-hmm.
If I
And I
could,
think that going back to the tracking, when you put yourself out there, you write that down and you give yourself a big giant pat on the back. So you don't forget to celebrate those big wins that you have, or small wins. So if you even reached out and then maybe chickened out later,
Mhm.
but even if you reached out, that is a huge step in the right direction, right?
Yeah. Well,
Where you can look at yourself and be proud of yourself, where you don't have, it doesn't have to be this big win, but when you identify that you did something good for not only your recovery but really your mental health, your physical health, all of that, you deserve a drum roll, right? A big applause. And if you're the only one clapping for yourself, that's completely fine. But that's why this group is just so wonderful too, because you can share that with stroke buddies. Someone's going to read it, and someone, even if you get one little like, or you just sharing it, you deserve another clap.
Mhm.
So those are big ways that you can just try to start celebrating yourself, because I don't think we do that enough in life. People think, you're cocky, you're too confident. No, you know what? That's where we move on. As adults, we don't really get a lot of recognition from people. When you're a little kid, you get a pat on the back all the time. You get a sticker. Give yourself the stickers.
Bruce,
Could I make a comment or two here?
no, I was going
um,
to say Dr. Hetzel and I started at the same time a minute ago, and I said we'd come to him. So go ahead, Dr. Hetzel.
Okay, thank you. Two things. Number one, a couple of years ago, there was a clinical psychologist that spoke to our stroke support group here. And since many stroke survivors can no longer go back to their occupation that they had before their stroke, he said, you have to find a new purpose in life. And that could be a hobby, it could be volunteering, something that gives you a reason to get up in the morning and do. Uh, Another thing I wanted to mention is that my former primary care physician had a sign in his office that said, exercise is the answer to everything. And in many ways, it is. Exercise is effective in altering the brain because it increases the production of BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. And antidepressants are effective in relieving depression because through a chemical cascade, they increase BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. So exercise can help relieve depression and can also help heal the brain because BDNF is like miracle grow for the brain.
I had
God bless you.
Thank you.
I had a neurologist. I gave a motivational speech to Tri-State Stroke Network. And I had a neurologist come up to me after, and we were talking about stuff. We were talking about depression, and he said something that I've used a bunch. More exercise equals less depression. And I read it like an equation in all caps. So there's that. I have another friend who's talking about, this was just in general, but it applies here. She was talking about, having work that you'd like to do, but she called it the GOB factor, G-O-B, the get out of bed factor. You need something in life that makes you want to get out of bed. Get out of bed and face the day. So that's my, well, I put in about 25 cents, not 2 cents so far.
Mhm.
I have a
A whole
question.
quarter.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Sam. Nice to meet you here.
Nice
Um,
to meet you.
yeah, I think you touched on, I've heard a lot of things about you, but anyways, um, you touched on this quite a bit here and there, but just kind of dive in a little bit deeper into like, all the exercise is pretty much everything, but you get to, yeah, I'm sure you have clients where they're just like, is this working or not? I'm 2 years post, but I'm continuing to stay within my routine, no matter what that looks like, even if I don't see the progress that I'm thinking that I'm gonna get. Like, how do you get over that hump with your clients? Because, when they report back to you, like, say, oh, how was your week? How was your exercise program that I sent you home with? They're like, oh, it was good. But, they've done it, but they don't see any progress. And, you're going through years and years of all this, or months and months, let's just say, and seeing no progress. It really, you want to stay positive and do everything that you were saying because I think it makes a lot of sense. Realizing the little wins, even like doing the routine or getting out of bed is a win. So how do you get them out of how do you get them out of that rut of like, is this working for me or not? Like,
Mix it up.
So
Let Sam say, Todd.
yeah, I think number one is my program, and I just the way that I kind of come at recovery in general is that idea of we're doing this so that you can do something functionally. So there's always the question of what is the most meaningful thing to you that you want to get back to. And we always use that as that's always something that I have as a question in any of my, meetings with my clients, any evaluations, reevaluations that I have with them, to ask them, where are we seeing the change in real life? Because we may see change. I always ask them, how are you feeling? Do we want to increase the difficulty of these exercises? Can we, I give them the option of, why don't we do a new challenge this week? So I always add challenge. However, it's where you really see it functionally in their lives that is what's going to be the number one thing for them to really feel like this is a meaningful change to me. Because who cares if you could do 20 push-ups instead of 10 push-ups? Like, I'm not doing push-ups all day. I want to be able to really like cook a meal for my husband, or I want to be able to go to the beach, right? So putting things like that on not just the schedule of their lives, but to always review and see how they did with certain things like that is really the way we track progress and keep them motivated. So, for instance, I'm thinking about this one woman I work with. She hasn't even had a stroke. She has some other neurological condition, and that was important for her, where she felt like she wasn't able to participate in the kitchen, and it wasn't even necessarily because she couldn't, but her husband and her son would just do it for her. So we really went through this whole thing of maybe you can assist with helping with the side dish. Maybe you can prep a side dish earlier in the day. And then we got to the point of, okay, maybe we can prepare two side dishes. Maybe we can prepare a lunch instead of a dinner, where you're preparing the lunch and like everyone else is out of the kitchen and they're busy doing something else. And we got to the point where she's able to do 3 dinners a week. So that was a way that we use our physical therapy in her rehab, and it's so reflective and obvious that she's improved, because she's like, I got that back, that I'm able to be a wife, a mother, and do something that I like, where she now has fun picking new recipes to try. So something like that, where we find the hole. Where is the hole in your life that you feel like you're no longer able to participate in or do because of your condition? And those are the questions I ask, in addition to really, how has your exercise been?
Also,
okay.
mixing it up will keep you from plateauing, Dr.
Yeah.
Amos.
Yeah, variation.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
you,
I would
you,
say I don't look at mixing it up. I look at like performance. Like I'm riding the bike and I beat my last time, I beat my record time by like 30 seconds, which was a pretty big deal. And it just put me to a
Yeah,
different level
absolutely.
of going for the next, hey, can I beat that time, in a month or so, you know?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that's kind
yeah.
of
Always
how I
tracking
measure things.
progress. Yeah. And you know what? Unfortunately, like in the beginning, when people are really getting used to the habits and stuff, we really look at like habit forming improvements. Oh, were you able to, actually participate in exercise this many times a week? Those are the wins we look at. Then we start looking at different ways that we can challenge exercises in different ways. So, for instance, with walking, um, maybe we're going to walk on a treadmill. Maybe we're going to walk on the treadmill without hands. Maybe we're going to walk down the driveway to get the mail every day, or take out the garbage every day, where we're incorporating things. Okay, how many times a week were you able to do it, or how much help did you need? So it all goes back to what's important to you, what would be motivating to you, because some people are motivated by the improvement in the 30 seconds and some people aren't. What really would be helpful for them to do more in their actual life. And then that tracking, because if they don't tell me, how do I know? Right? Or if they don't even recognize themselves, how do we know that progress is even being made? So
Yeah.
you're keeping track of yourself to say, last week I did this much, and this week I was able to do it, for 30 more seconds or quicker, in 30 seconds faster. So that habit of even just paying attention to your performance is huge.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great way of tracking and giving yourself a pat on the back for the small wins.
Yeah. I think I found myself like it's okay to compensate if you want the joys of life, to enjoy some of your life.
Yes.
Mm.
Because people say, if you don't, if the compensation's okay. It's not a bad thing, but if you could compensate to go spend time with your kids, or like you're saying, like, hey, can I cook a side dish? But you compensated in a way that made sense to do that. That's okay to do, long as it's even if it's not like the progress you think you might not get because it's you know it's good learn use, I guess, in a sense. But
Yeah.
but
Well, I always try to present it as it's a compensation for now, because I'd rather you be able to participate in the thing right now, because
yeah,
that's going to help you and that's going to start building confidence. That's going to help us start identifying where the difficulties in your performance of that thing are, right? So, say going to a family cookout, we got to walk a farther distance. We may have to walk on grass. We are going to be outside in the elements. We may have to walk farther distance to a bathroom. Those are all things that can be challenging. So I'll say, hey, you know what? You need your roll later that day, or you need to hold on to your husband's arm. Go for it, but at least go. And then you let me know how it went. And then from there, we're going to target all those things. And when you do it again, let's try to up the ante that time.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, because that ableism, being able to really do something, no matter how many deficits you have, is so empowering that, when people poo-poo on assisted devices, I'm like, they actually let you live your life. What if you didn't have a Hemi walker, you didn't have a cane? Would you be able to go to the grocery store? What, are you going to just sit in your house all day? I'd rather you, when you're doing a long distance walk, go do the walk, but use your cane if you have to. I'd rather you do the walk with the cane than not do the walk at all. And then we just move forward from there.
Yeah,
I look at it
So
like,
instilling that idea of it's just for now to be able to do it, and then we'll move
yeah,
forward from there.
yeah, right. Even if it looks ugly, it's okay, as long as you just get out there and do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And
absolutely.
one thing I wanted to say, Jerry, I've been in your situation. So what I was told, and I've practiced this every time, is that when I'm in that depressive mode, I just go walk. And I don't walk very fast, or I walk with a cane. Thank God, I can walk with a cane. That's what I do, and I've learned that the hard way, Jerry. But what I've learned is that if I feel that way, I'm just going walking. I'm just gonna walk.
Push it off your plate. Go do something
Yes.
else.
Yeah, because
I,
I've been there, Jerry. I still see a therapist. I still see my psychologist, just for medication, but I'm not on any of those medications anymore. But when I get down and depressed, I just go for a walk. That's what I do. And walking is not easy for me, but it just, then I make it a little bit harder where I try to make it quality wise, but still, I'm out there walking, and it really just really distracts the depression,
I
because
look
it's a task that is not easy to do. That's just me. So, okay, I'm done talking.
Ugh.
That's all I wanted to say, Jerry.
I look
Thanks.
at the whole thing as like the way you go up steps in the beginning, okay? So you can say, I can't go up the steps, or you could say, I can grab onto the handrail with both hands and help, grab my pants, lift my affected leg up, and do them one step at a time. No, I'm not doing them like I used to do. No, I used to be able to take two steps at the same time. So you do it the way you can, because doing it the way you can at this point leads you towards doing it the way you used to do it, or doing better every time. So just like the steps, all of a sudden you're not lifting that leg, by the trousers with your unaffected hand. You're able to drag it up a step, and then it goes up a step easier. And then you say, well, what if I went up like one step instead of going like step up, step up, step up? Matching, you go step, 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 like you used to do. And I'm back to taking 2 steps at a time if I want on my affected leg too. So you just keep at it. In the beginning, I thought you had to do it by the sheet perfectly. I didn't understand adapting things. I didn't understand like not doing them perfect. I didn't understand breaking them down. So sometimes you have to break it down a task. You have to accept an adaptation in order to be able to do some semblance of it to get the reps in. And yeah, you want to leave the bad habits behind as soon as you can, but there's got to be some breakdown and some acceptance of that this is the best I can do at this point. Dr. Sam, you got to be turning into a pumpkin soon.
Yes, I was just going to say, this has been such a wonderful, beautiful conversation. I'm so happy. So many people were willing and able to, chat with us and participate in this. So I don't want to say, Ralph, you get off and everyone has to get off too. I'm going to head to my client.
Well, you
However,
have to. We seriously appreciate your time. And anybody out there in
course.
YouTube land, or any of you who don't know Dr. Sam, she does work privately with people. I don't monitor this stuff, but I do know that several people in our community have worked with you and that they were real happy with the results. So all of her information, if you want to get in touch with her, will be in the description underneath this video. And Dr.
Absolutely.
Sam, thank you so much for taking.
You're very, very welcome. It was really a pleasure. I was so happy to be back.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All
Have a
right.
great
Thank you.
day.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So she never disappoints.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, she knows her stuff and she cares. I've
She
been
does sound like she cares a lot.
Yeah, she does. I've been lucky to find a number of people who are, therapists and professionals that are also empathetic to what we're going through. Not everybody is. We've all had the physical therapist that, feels that you feel like they're just, going through the motions with you. And I've had some that I felt were really, really trying to help me. And I felt some kind of connection. So, I always say I'm a beggar. I let Dr. Sam into a group and I called her when I was going to Charlotte, and I ended up having to pull off the road 3 times because I kept losing the signal. I thought she's going to think I'm a nutcase. Anyhow, we survived all that, and now this is number 5, and she comes back in the groups and answers questions sometimes. So does Shawnee Young. So does a lot of people. I try and rope in people that will not only present to us, but then continue to share their knowledge, come back, answer questions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was actually pretty impressed about she wasn't just a PT. She was just touching on everything, motions and everything, Like usually they don't dive in that, my PTs never dive into that type of emotions, But it's good. It's good to hear all that from her perspective, seeing it even from the outside. It's good to hear all that.
I didn't want to keep it chiming in and monopolizing the floor because I wanted anybody else out there to be able to talk. But a couple of things I've always felt like if when you go to an evaluation with a new therapist, if they don't talk to you about your plans and your goals and everything, then you need to bring them up, because the therapy thing is a 2-way street. And if the two of you aren't communicating about, you have to be an active participant in your, Sam was talking about that. Yes, and you need to be doing, okay, when they're teaching you something, you need to keep your mouth shut and watch and listen and learn. But when they're talking to you about how to go this week, that kind of thing, you need to be doing 50% of the talking or more. And if you're just sitting there answering questions, yes, okay, went okay, you're not getting everything that you could out of your recovery. in order to answer those questions, you have to do a lot of the things that she was talking about. Pay attention during the week. How did it go? Okay, I've been working on getting in and out of the car. I'm getting in and out of the car a little better. I lifted my foot in this time rather than
Yeah.
I did a lot of grabbing my pants and shorts and lifting my leg in the early days, So I paid strict attention to when I didn't have to do that anymore. When I could back in the car, and then with my affected leg out, I'm on left affected, so when I drive, that's the leg that's got to be pulled in. When I was a passenger, I had to work on being able to put that leg in first and then have it support me while I transition my butt to the seat without, hitting my head on the top of the door,
Yeah.
crashing it into the seat. You want to do a nice controlled down. So, one of the things you can do is, having body awareness and paying attention to what's going on with you go a long way in terms of helping with that, tracking that you can do. I never wrote anything down. I did a lot of tracking, but I did it all in my head. I mean, I could tell if I was walking better. I could tell if I didn't have to lift my leg into the car when I got into the car, that kind of thing. But you need to be paying attention with everything. And those are the answers to those questions. That's how, by
Yeah.
doing that, that's how you elaborate on those questions. Well, I've been trying to get in the car better, and my left leg still won't come in, and you sit down in a chair and demonstrate, what can I do to learn how to lift that leg up and put it in the car? Are there any exercises I can do? Now you're interacting with a therapist and you're getting exercises based on your goals. And that's the whole point. The therapist, like Sam said, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this to help you get better. So
Right.
you have to remember that and try and take advantage of them as much as possible. And they will definitely respond. Okay, I've had 4 or 5 therapists where I actually I ask in a very neutral way. I didn't want to, I was never would try and get somebody to say, I treat my patients differently, but we dance around it a little bit, and the therapist will tell you that they can tell the difference between somebody who does their homework and somebody who goes, and I always do this, and this is how I get around it. There are people that come in to therapists and they all see it, and when they see me do this, they crack up because they get these people. People come in and go, I'm here, make me better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all cracked up, and they all, like I said, I didn't try and get them to say, well, I treat people that don't do their homework and ask for homework like crap. I'm smarter than try and get an answer like that out of them. Just basically, I want them to reinforce the idea that they're paying attention. If you do your homework, they're going to respond to you differently. And I literally, after a week or two with my therapist, they knew at the end that, okay, 5 minutes left, we need to go over homework. They would start saying it. If they didn't, I would start looking at my watch or whatever, remind them if I had to, I'd go, okay, well, I need homework for this week. And I would always go back in and demonstrate the homework while they were, doing the setup talking. I'd say, okay, keep talking. I'm going to show you I'm going to show you how I'm doing with the 2 things you gave me to learn this week. And I'll sit there and demo them. Why? Because I'm trying to impress them. I'm trying to impress them with the fact that I'm showing up, that I care, that I give a crap. Because they'll treat me differently. So,
Yeah.
all right. I better get off my high horse and back onto the soapbox. It's a bit lower than I am at the moment, but I feel passionately about this, and I've learned a few things along the way, and anything that I've learned that can be useful to somebody else, I'm gonna blab about it if I'm given the opportunity. So
Yeah. I think those are very good points because I had to practice being an advocate and speaking up too for the plan of getting better and doing the homework. You have to definitely speak up. Now I've gotten better at it as I know more about things. So, but in the past, I wasn't like that as much because I don't think I was as confident about learning how to recover. You know, I just didn't know enough about it. Now I have a pretty good taste of it now, and I'm getting better at that. Every appointment, whatever that looks like, I've gotten better about speaking up for asking questions, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, like we were saying to Jerry earlier, these things are all interconnected. So when you start exercising and you start having a good relationship with your physical therapist, you might not be aware of the fact that you're feeling better and maybe less depressed. You may not be aware of certain things, but all of a sudden, I don't know, I find that nothing's static in life. Nothing stays here. Things either spiral up or unfortunately spiral down. So you want to at least keep the treading water and see if you can get them to spiral up and not let them spiral down. And it's really hard to say what's exactly causing what. But when you have positivity, it tends to affect everything in your life. That's why I was saying to Jerry, don't underestimate community in terms of depression, because there's carryover in all this stuff. It's not like, okay, we do community over here, we got depression over here, we got exercise over. No, everything's connected through, guess what? The old brain that we're trying to rehab. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Anybody got anything? Want to keep going with this conversation? We can.
Yeah, Ralph,
Yeah.
couple of things, mate. With the depression, do you hydro pools are always a very good contact point for doing exercise and also for talking to other people trying to help themselves. Have you got me?
Yeah. I'm thinking about that one.
Yeah, or at least that's how I find it out here because we use a hydro pool. It's heated and it's enclosed. So you're there with other people exercising. So I've got a couple of people to get together and you're talking, but you're also exercising and I'm giving them new exercises to do.
I love it.
You're helping them train as well as socialize.
Well, first off, for anybody out there who doesn't know, and most of the people here have been here before, and they know that I'm a huge believer in pool therapy because you take not all of gravity, but you take half of gravity out of the equation. But the main thing you do so you can move better, and that's always encouraging. When I've taken people to the pool that can't walk on land, and they walk in the pool, and you should see. Bob, you should see the look on their face. It's like they were released from prison, and in a sense, they were. They were. The other thing about pool therapy is, unless you're really close to the edge and you somehow fall and hit your head on the edge of the pool, you really can't get hurt. Yeah. Especially if you have somebody with you. Most of what I took I took 6 or 7. I'd have to think about it exactly. I mean, it took at least 6 survivors to pool therapy a number of times. One for about 2.5 years, once a week. And there's nothing like it. And the whole thing that, you're no longer afraid, I call it outer space. When you're walking and you have nothing to touch on to, you got no cane, you got nothing. You're in outer space. And there's a lot, in the early days, there's a lot of fear. You get in the pool, you don't have that fear because if you fall over, you're falling over in the water. You're not going to get hurt. And every single person I ever took I saw it translate to the land and relatively quickly. So I love that idea, Bob, because you got 2 things going on. You got community going on top of the exercising.
Yeah. But the other thing is, one thing that I learned probably 10 years ago from the pool was the resistance that you get from water. So if you want to build muscle, and it's always good for us to build muscle because that helps our bodily functions, you can use either dumbbells or water dumbbells in the pool, and they're fantastic. And with stroke survivors particularly, you're virtually lifting a heavy weight, but you don't realize it because it's only the resistance of the water. So you're not picking up this heavy dumbbell to do curls. You just got to, floaty. It's a floaty. But use it under the water and it's fantastic.
For anybody who doesn't know, they make these, they look like dumbbells, except they're made
Yep.
out of styrofoam and they float. And
Yep.
so the other cool thing about them is that they're like a band, in that the harder you pull on a band, the harder it pulls back on you.
Yeah.
Same with those, what you're doing is you're doing them underwater. So you're trying to push down. In the beginning, they go down pretty easy. You get them down under, well, where it happens to get more and more difficult until you get the whole thing underwater. Once it's all the way underwater, it stays the same. It's at max. But you got this whole thing going on where it increases the resistance as you push.
I
So
think
yeah,
the other thing I wanted to mention, I think Winifred was talking about a leg moving out to the right. I use those short TheraBands. I put them at the bottom of my feet and then just push the band out to the right or left, whatever. It helps strengthen the adductors in your legs, and that's what you need for balance. So they're very good for stroke survivors as well.
I'd
Thank you
completely
for the info.
I'd completely agree, except what you need to do before you introduce the band is perfect the movement so that you know you're doing it right. Because one of the things that happens if you don't have the movement perfected and you introduce weights or bands or something, you run the risk of not doing it, not having proper
Correctly.
So, if
Sure.
you're not doing it, if you don't feel like you're doing them clean, I would wait until you do feel like you're doing them clean to introduce any weights or bands. Same way when I was building up my arm, it would just flop. And so I wasn't going to put a weight in it because that would just make
Oh,
it
no, of course.
more.
Yeah.
So once I got back nice, smooth range of motion all the way down and all the way back up, then I introduced the weight, and I'm a big believer in reps. I got my 1 pound weights over there. I did 1 pound and 2 pound weight. That's all. I see these people that they put 20-pound dumbbells in their affected arm, and they go, and I don't
And
even,
then you don't do any of these things
I
unless
didn't
a
want to do that
therapist
with my
tells you
affected
to.
arm because I started to do that with my affected arm and realized I don't want to do that. It'll train it. So they're like straining and
Yeah.
jerking. You can see the muscles shaking when they bring it. No, that's not good. You want to do
Doesn't work. No.
you want to do nice, clean reps. And if you can't do them with weights, practice until you got good form. Same with the band.
What did Peter Levine say? To do, if you want to work on one thing at a time, you've got to do around about 1,200 reps in his book.
Right. Yeah.
And it's scientifically proven that you've got to do approximately 1,200. Now, that's boring, but you've got to do it.
Personally, I think it's 12,000 or 120,000. Yeah, I do. Because
You do?
I've had physical
No,
therapy.
this one's talk. Well,
Oh,
I'm sure in
have
the book
one.
I've read
read it.
1,200.
It's the best book out there. I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm just saying
Yeah.
I've had physical therapists say, you have to do 10,000 reps of anything. I calculated, well, I guess because of Winnie, we were talking about heel raises, and I thought, I did 50 sets of 50. I do 2 sets of 50, so that's 100. I do them 5 times a day, so that's 500 a day times 365. That's like 19,000 or 190,000. Wait a minute, let's see.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
500 a day, 2 days to 1,000. That's 150. That's 175,000 in a year. I probably
That'll do
did.
it.
I probably
That'll
did
do it.
150,000 heel raises in my first year.
Yeah.
I'm not shitting you.
I believe you.
And I use that word on purpose.
Yeah. No, I think you go back to what you've been talking about today. If I saw what you've got for your stroke survivors now, I only come across you 12 months ago. That would help every stroke survivor there is. But getting people to do it is the same thing Sam was talking about. To motivate them to do it, to get them to do it. How do you do it? My daughter's a physio and she can't do it. She said, Dad, I've got a 70-30 theory. 70 people won't do 70% of people won't do what you tell them to do.
I've worked with 12 local stroke survivors, and I'm here to tell you about 99% of people won't do their homework or do what they're supposed to do. And that's being gracious to the other 1%. Actually, but I would show up at their house twice a week with a grab bar and go, okay, we're doing counter exercises, and I'd do them with them. All right, ready? We're gonna do marching. Ready to start with the left, and 1, and 2, and 3, and I'd do them right along with them. What are they gonna do?
Yeah.
So that's one reason I like the community pool idea, and it could be a exercise class or anything. Of course, it has to be somehow you have to find a Zumba class or a yoga class or something to go to or put together your own group. But see, all of a sudden, back to Jerry again, all of a sudden, you got this group that you exercise with. Are you going to not show up on them on Tuesdays and Thursdays? No, there's some like herd pressure to show up. And guess what else happens? Sometimes people notice your progress where you can't. Sometimes people say to you, oh, you're doing a lot better with that this week. And you're going, really? And then you think about it and they're right. So I love the whole community thing, but it's, you got to get it going. You got to find a exercise group. Sure. And by the way, Jerry, one thing that I know, Lynn Cecilia in California has been doing Zumba for 5 or 6 years. Does she do it like all the other women, non-stroke women in the group? Nope. Does she show up and give it her best shot? Yep. Is it working for her? Yep. So we're back to put yourself out there. Well, the thing about making things into habits, see, I had days where I didn't want to get up and do 10 hours. I did 10 hours of physical therapy every day. Yeah. So I had days where I didn't want to do that. I'd go like, I'm feeling lazy today. But I just went ahead and did it because if you just
didn't have one day off
and you do it, it turns into a habit, and you have less and less of those days where you try and talk yourself out of it. I don't know about you, Jerry, but I talked myself out of going to listen to 50 or 100 bands and a couple of dinners and putting together things with other friends. A couple of years ago, I was pretty good at, I would like book them. I'd like, oh, there's an event, and I'd be interested, and I'd put them on my calendar, and then it'd come time to go, I don't feel like changing. I don't know. I'll be the only one there. I won't know anybody. Well, if you don't know anybody, how are you going to meet anybody unless you put yourself out there and go meet people?
Right.
So, is my life perfect at this point? Hell no.
Mm-hmm.
The simple solution to it is, and I don't know how you feel about it, but, find a partner. But that's not easy either. And guess what? They don't have them at Walmart. You have to put yourself out there. They're not next to the organic beans on the, in aisle 22. You have to go to a drum circle or go volunteer at a dog rescue place and meet somebody similar to yourself. Everything in life comes down to putting yourself out there, I think.
Just do it.
And it's really bad for us to sit around. It's also bad for your longevity. I'm not trying to scare you, but you read the Blue Zones is pretty much food related, but they'll talk about community also. Scientists will tell you if you're not involved in community, you're cutting 5 or 6 years off your life. Now, I don't know where they start measuring that from. I'm 75, so if I cut 5 years off my life, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 5 years, even if I'm getting out every day. But
you'll be around at 90.
If you listen to Blue Zones, you should be eating beans every day. I've been trying to afford beans. Well, beans add 7 years to your life, but I think you have to start. I don't think you can start at 80. I think you have to start at 30.
I gotta go. Good seeing you guys.
Good to see
Yeah,
you.
me too. So thanks, Ralph. I'll talk to you soon.
We're here.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Anybody else got anything? If not, I guess I'll end the meeting. Everybody's going, I'll end the meeting. So, arrivederci, ciao. That's all.
Ralph, if you say how and why, I think you'll get ahead in yourself.
If I do what?
If I say why and how, I can overcome my problem.
Okay.
If
Okay.
that makes sense.
Why am I having the problem and how do I get around it?
Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm going to end the YouTube. Let me stop the recording and go end the YouTube, and I'll come back and end the meeting, I guess, unless anybody's got anything. And okay, we're not streaming anymore. You can say whatever the hell you want. I'm not recording. I'm not streaming.